This video is going to be about dual use. People who use electronic cigarettes and regular cigarettes. A recent study came out was showing that what the study was saying was that e-cigarettes were as effective as nicotine patches, and this study is just getting blasted all over the place. This is just like such a breakthrough study in a lot of people's eyes that this is a wonderful product by what the study is saying. Well, as I said before in a prior video, it was showing that it was as successful as an unsuccessful product for smoking cessation. It was showing that 7.3% of people who used electronic cigarettes had not smoked a cigarette in 6 months. Well, that's lousy. In 6 months to have 7.3% of people not smoking, that's not a great success rate. If people wanted to quit smoking, that's again a 93% some failure rate. But it didn't, and it did say this, but this isn't being covered much. That wasn't saying that they broke free from nicotine, because over 30-some% of those people who were considered the successful quitters were still using e-cigarettes. So they had transferred how they were using their cigarettes. So it has kind of a lousy success rate just for getting off cigarettes at all, and for getting off nicotine it even has a lower success rate. So what I wanted to talk about in this video is the dual use issue. The dual use of people who didn't quit smoking but continued on e-cigarettes, and who basically would say in the study, it was one of the things that they were looking at, they were more likely to recommend e-cigarette usage to other people, to their friends who smoke. And people think about this in the form of, this is a good form of harm reduction, because you got people smoking a few less cigarettes because they were smoking e-cigarettes in their place. I don't see this as a good thing. I don't. When I was doing clinics near the end, in the last 5 to 10 years maybe, I was probably getting more people in smoking clinics because they were so restricted on where they could smoke. They were in withdrawal a lot more because they couldn't smoke wherever they wanted to. They couldn't smoke in their homes because of their families. They were giving them a hard time. They couldn't smoke in their offices because of regulations. They couldn't smoke on planes and trains and public transportation because it wasn't allowed. They couldn't smoke in restaurants and bars because they were banned in those locations. Now, these people didn't quit smoking. They reduced smoking to a degree, but not as much as you would think, because they had to compensate. What they would do is, if they were going to a bar or to a party or to a gathering where they knew they couldn't smoke for hours, they would chain smoke before they got there. They would get their nicotine level as high as possible. They were poisoning themselves with nicotine dosages at this point. They felt terrible. Then when they were in the situation where they couldn't smoke, they felt okay for a while, but then the nicotine level did drop eventually, and they were in withdrawal, and they felt terrible. And then when they got out, they would chain smoke to get the nicotine level up, to get to a bearable level. And then if they were going to a place where they couldn't smoke again for a while, they would oversmoke before then, which they would feel terrible, at which point they'd be in the situation where they couldn't smoke and they would feel terrible. It was just a roller coaster they were on of oversmoking or undersmoking all the time. This got a lot of them to be sick and tired of smoking. And this became the impetus for many of these people to stop smoking. And then when they stopped smoking, when they got rid of nicotine, when they were past all of this, they got this life of freedom that they really liked. Yes, they quit because of the pressures of smoking, but they found that they liked their life. They found out that where they thought, by using cigarettes, by delivering nicotine, they thought they were calmer. They found out when they quit smoking, they were calmer than when they were, using. They thought that it gave them energy, but then after they quit, they found out they had more energy. It was better than when they were using. And all of a sudden they started to realize their life was better. They were more productive now that they quit. They used to think that they needed the cigarette to be productive. They had all these false images of what smoking was doing for them, it was doing to them. But because of the hassles of being a smoker that got them to quit, that's what allowed them to see what life was really like without cigarettes. And it was a better way of life. Dual use now, where people are able to supplement their cigarettes with their e-cigarettes, they're losing the ability to suffer. It's a bizarre way of saying it, but that's what's happening. They're losing, getting that point of misery that gets them off smoking because, again, of misery, but it's minor misery compared to the real misery they will feel if, because they don't get this uncomfortable time period on a frequent basis, it allows them to keep smoking altogether and then getting a smoking-induced illness, which makes the suffering that they were going through because of the social problem minimal compared to the suffering they're going through because they've got a smoking-related illness that now needs treatments that could be just traumatic, or, again, getting a condition that just, it will cause them inability to breathe for the rest of their life if it's a chronic obstructive pulmonary kind of disease, or one that kills them. The suffering they were getting by being limited in where they could smoke helped them to avoid the suffering from not stopping smoking. And that's where I see an issue with e-cigarettes. They are maybe going to, at this point in time, keep more people using than would have if they were not available. To me, that's not a net positive. A lot of people in tobacco control are thinking like this is a great thing that we have here to help these people to quit. But at this point in time, it's not helping them quit, and it may keep them using. You throw into the fray the fact that there are now young people who've never smoked before starting to go on to their lifetime career of nicotine addiction by using e-cigarettes, which are now being promoted in a way that cigarettes have not been promoted in a long time because of laws, and e-cigarettes don't seem to have these laws on them. They're showing up in TV ads now with the same sort of appeal that cigarettes were once given on the air. You throw that kind of factor into the equation, that now we are creating more nicotine addicts. You put that together with this other issue, and we might have a big problem on our hands that we're going to be facing for decades now. So just wanted to point out that when you're seeing this, raving reviews of what the study was showing and how people are taking and running with this, that this is a great product, look at what it really was saying. Look at what the quit rates really were. Understand what the transfer rates really were, and how it is more of a dual use issue than of a cessation issue, and the fact that it may very well keep people smoking, and what the long-term implication of that is, and possibly what the short-term implication with that is. If you are a smoker right now and you want out, if you are a nicotine addict right now, if you've been, again, if hooked on e-cigarettes or other usage or other nicotine products, understand your life will become better, easier, simpler, cheaper, safer on every level if you finally, once and for all, get the stuff out of your system and keep it out of your system. The way to break the nicotine addiction and the problems that go with it is still a matter of just making and sticking to a personal commitment to never take another puff.